At exactly 1 a.m. local time on September 13, 2025, the Primorsk oil port, Moscow's major energy export hub on the Baltic Sea, was busy completing the loading of two enormous tankers, the Cousteau and the Kalun. Under powerful shipyard lights, vast quantities of crude oil were forced through colossal steel pipes directly into the cargo holds. Each vessel could carry over 120,000 short tons, the equivalent of millions of barrels, and just one full shipment sustained Russia's strategic export flow for multiple days. They were much more than simple ships. They were mobile financial assets, crucial for sustaining the national economy and maintaining energy agreements with buyers in Europe and China. For the Ukrainian military, these ships represented the single most valuable targets across Russia's vast energy export infrastructure. A successful strike here was understood to be nothing less than a critical wound to Russia's military economy. In just a few hours, a crude oil cargo valued at over 200 million USD would be transformed into an uncontrollable, towering conflagration. By 1:15 a.m. from a hidden launch site in northern Ukraine, the first Lut-96 UAV shot into the dark like an apparition. Another followed every 10 seconds. Within 7 minutes, the entire formation of over 40 UAVs had departed their launch rails. They were pre-programmed days in advance, acting like a coordinated pack of guided weapons. Each carried a warhead holding nearly 65 pounds of PBX-12, a high-penetration thermoplastic explosive, all directed toward the single-point Primorsk oil port. Instead of a single line of flight, the swarm divided into three principal axes, executing a tactical pincer movement designed to fool radar and overwhelm Russia's air defense response. The central axis, 20 UAVs, followed a route along the rail lines via Belgorod and Voronezh, flying below 656 feet to stay hidden from ground radars. The east axis, 10 UAVs, routed via Tambov and Ryazan, skirting known S-400 and Pantsir-S1 battery locations around Tula, which was a high-priority no-fly zone protecting Moscow. The west axis, 10 UAVs, hugged the Belarus border using deep forest and terrain features to evade detection by long-range Podsolnuk and Nebo-M radars. The entire formation was managed by the Skynode S platform, a low-level artificial intelligence system that integrated computer vision, high-resolution infrared cameras, and up-to-date digital terrain maps. Even if the adversary successfully jammed GPS signals, the Lut's Skynode automatically switched to inertial and localized navigation, matching its onboard camera imagery against the digital map database. Power lines, transmission pylons, forest edges, and drainage paths were all mapped by the AI as essential navigation reference points. No radio signals were broadcast, and no remote control chatter was necessary. This made the Lut drones a true nightmare, as they were virtually immune to Russian electronic countermeasures. At 3:41 a.m., as the swarm approached the Ural area, roughly 140 miles from the Leningrad border, Ukraine deployed a surprise tactical element hidden since the start of the mission. From a control facility near Kharkiv, a Ukrainian low-Earth orbit reconnaissance satellite was directed to activate. This was a modified satellite carrying a false reflection module specifically designed to scramble radar returns. Its only mission was to temporarily neutralize the key radar chain along the Smolensk-Novgorod line, the vital early warning network in northwest Russia that detects threats from Belarus, Ukraine, and the Baltic Sea. Over the next 7 minutes, Podsolnuk, Gamma-DE, and Nebo-M radars were forced to process dozens of ghost contacts generated by an electronic clutter cloud moving in parallel toward the northwest. While Russian operators frantically analyzed the sudden rush of false alerts, the 40 genuine Lut UAVs slipped silently beneath the main radar coverage, heading straight for their designated target, the strategic Primorsk oil port. At 4 a.m., after nearly 3 hours of ground-hugging flight, the entire UAV formation was near the Gulf of Finland approaches, less than 95 miles from Primorsk. Here, 5 UAVs from the central axis suddenly broke formation and pulled up rapidly, climbing to 16,400 feet. They were converting themselves into bait. Each was equipped with radar reflective panels and a signal transmitter that accurately emulated the signature of a high-altitude strike package. Russian radar systems now perceived them as a genuine aerial threat. At 4:08 a.m., the radar screen at the Livo-Orly warning station in the Novgorod region registered the 5 strong, stable, and clear returns. The alert level was immediately raised to level 1. Within 2 minutes, the local Air Defense Command concluded the targets were unidentified, slow, and low-flying, but their unusually high radar cross-section meant they were likely reconnaissance UAVs or small aircraft, qualifying them for engagement. A firing order was issued without hesitation. 2 Pantsir-S1 batteries near Yaroslav launched 4 57E6 missiles. From Cherepavets, an S-400 battery fired 2 Mach 6 48N6E missiles, saturating the target area. Just 40 seconds later, all 5 radar contacts vanished. Thermal analysis confirmed debris falling into the forested area north of Novgorod. Russian command confirmed that 5 high-altitude targets had been neutralized, with no ongoing threat. The Russian officers did not realize they had just wasted costly surface-to-air missiles on 5 sacrificial decoy UAVs precisely programmed by Ukraine to be destroyed at that moment. The remaining 35 loot UAVs continued skimming the Earth. They were spaced 650 to 980 feet apart, maintained an altitude below 330 feet, emitted no signals, and provided no radar echoes. The entire operation depended solely on inertial navigation and terrain mapping. At 4:17 a.m., the central formation crossed Lake Ilmen and entered the corridor between Novgorod and Leningrad. On Russian radar screens, total silence continued. Beneath this calm exterior, a destructive operation was rapidly closing in. At 4:22 a.m., the western group neared the southern edge of the Narva Gulf, a sector nominally covered by early warning posts and Pantsir batteries. A faint, unclear blip appeared on the Vyborg Air Defense Command screen, a fuzzy, low-speed contact with intermittent returns. An officer suggested it might be a flock of migrating birds or a low-flying stealth craft, but no one authorized opening fire. The engagement order was delayed, as no one wanted to waste missiles on a possible radar illusion. Simultaneously, the 10 eastern UAVs crossed Lake Onega, approaching the Petrozavodsk-Vyborg rail line. The lead drones utilized a real-time terrain synchronization algorithm, constantly matching sensor data to a 3D map to navigate GPS denial zones established by Russian electronic warfare. Infrared cameras picked up faint glints from radar towers, and the AI instantaneously adjusted the flight paths, avoiding each watchpoint with impossible precision. At 4:27 a.m., less than 25 miles from Primorsk, Russian ground radar finally registered genuine contacts. Numerous small targets hugging the surface, moving at moderate speed, converging from 3 separate directions. At the Vyborg command post, the duty lieutenant colonel finally elevated the alert to level 2. Activate Pantsir-S1, expand monitoring sector to the southeast and the coastline. But the response was far too late. By the time the Pantsir radar swept the sector, the 3 UAV formations, center, east, and west, were simultaneously converging from all sides. This was a timed encirclement, executed to the second. Within 45 seconds, Baltic air defense controllers confirmed the worst. The entire UAV formation was heading directly for the Primorsk port, Russia's second-largest oil export facility. 6 Pantsir-S1 batteries were immediately ordered to engage. From the coastal forest line, the launch tubes rose and simultaneously spat 57E6 missiles roaring toward the night sky. In the final seconds, the remaining 35 UAVs split into 3 prongs, each keeping an altitude under 200 feet, weaving around container stacks, coastal rail lines, and petrochemical facilities. They were perfectly coordinated under the principle of the swarm. Each UAV, while independent, was part of the whole, sharing flight data and evading threats using Skynode's synchronized algorithms. Russia's final defensive layer responded desperately. Operators on a Pantsir-S1 battery shouted as the 1RS-2E radar finally locked multiple targets.
In less than 90 seconds, 25 UAVs were destroyed. Some were shredded by 30mm autocannons at close range, others were intercepted by 57 E-6 missiles. But the final 10 UAVs were different. These were the Alpha Wolves, each assigned a specific independent target using unique flight algorithms and carrying the heaviest payloads reserved for the final critical strikes. They simultaneously activated their terminal attack mode. The Primorsk oil port had only minutes left before total destruction. At 4:44 a.m., the last 10 UAVs dropped below 165 feet, skimming the sea surface to hide within radar clutter. Their Skynote S suite autonomously recalculated and redistributed their final attack routes based on preloaded target data. They did not strike the same point. They divided the attack across the critical operational nodes of the Primorsk infrastructure.
The first two dove straight toward the port's operations center, the brain controlling all loading and routing. One executed a sharp climb from the left, plunging nose first into a second-floor window identified as housing the main server cluster. The blast effectively decapitated Primorsk's control systems. As flames erupted from the upper floor, two other UAVs simultaneously struck the tanker Cousteau at the southern pier. The first slammed into the engine room, crippling power generation and halting the oil pumps mid-flow. The second hit the main intake pipe from the starboard side, causing a major secondary explosion. Raw crude oil spilled across the pier and ignited in under 6 seconds. At 4:45 minutes and 12 seconds, two more UAVs locked on to the tanker Kailun. The first tore into the intake valve control room and the second struck the forward operations cabin. A pillar of fire nearly 100 feet high erupted from the deck, burning like a torch against the Baltic night. As fire spread along the pier, three more UAVs swung toward pump station number 2, the hub that regulated more than 35% of Primorsk's total export capacity. The first destroyed the main pressure compression array. The second punched through the roof into the flow control regulator. The third tore into the input signal receiver. Within just 0.8 seconds, pressure across the pipeline network surged past maximum safe limits. A massive blast then ripped the roof off the pumping station. Black smoke, intense heat, and twisted steel fragments shot into the sky. Primorsk had lost its pumping capacity. In just 2 minutes, the last 10 UAVs had struck the port's most vital points. 2 supertankers were ablaze. The central pumping station was obliterated. All power and coordination systems were disabled. Fires raged out of control. When fire crews arrived, temperatures at the pumping hub exceeded 1,830 degrees Fahrenheit. With no safe options, authorities were forced to seal off the entire port. Satellite imagery showed Primorsk as a blazing scar over a mile long, with 2 core infernos and 4 secondary fires. Russia later confirmed the destruction of at least 2 tankers, the halt of the main offshore loading line, damaged internal power grids, and fuel exports through Primorsk disrupted for days. In the panic following the strike, all tankers in the Primorsk Gulf were ordered to immediately withdraw, causing massive cascading logistical delays. The international oil market reacted instantly. Primorsk was confirmed not just as technical infrastructure, but as a financial and political linchpin. On the morning of September 17th, Russia's Ministry of Defense formally admitted that Northwest air defenses had intercepted a long-range UAV attack near Primorsk, while maintaining that most targets were neutralized. They provided no details about the actual damage to the port. Yet within hours, international OSINT channels had precisely geolocated the strike area through nighttime satellite imagery, thermal readings, and leaked telegram videos.
Western analysts concluded that this attack represented a breakthrough in both range and precision for Ukraine's UAV capabilities. This was not a random action. It was a textbook execution of modern drone warfare. Swarm division, electronic jamming, deception, and synchronized strikes from multiple vectors. It used the same successful playbook that Ukraine had employed to neutralize S-400 radars at Jankoy and Sevastopol. The raid cemented a strategic shift in modern warfare. With only a few dozen low-cost UAVs, Ukraine successfully pierced one of the densest air defense belts in northwest Russia. Meanwhile, Russia expended costly surface-to-air missiles, yet failed to stop the main attack. The failure at Primorsk showed that even the most heavily guarded civilian infrastructure is not immune to UAVs when an adversary successfully fuses AI, swarm logic, and tactical precision. Above all, it delivered a stark global message. If Primorsk can be hit, nowhere else is safe.